To call this regular meeting of the Coralville City Council to order. It is June 24th, 2025. Could I have the roll call, please?
Knutson.
Here.
Vogelsang.
Here.
Quinn.
Here.
Peterson. Goodrich.
Here.
All council members except Peterson are present, as is the mayor, the city clerk, the deputy city administrator, the city attorney, and other staff in the audience. I would entertain a motion to amend the agenda with the removal of item 5.
Madam Mayor, I would like to propose a amend to the agenda to remove item number 5.
Okay,
Second.
seconded by Vogelsang. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The amended agenda is approved. Okay, next item, we have community comments. This is a time for community members to speak to us about items that aren't on the agenda or items that are on the agenda but are not subject to a public hearing. Each speaker will have 5 minutes, and we do reserve the right to adjust both the individual speaking time as well as the overall comment time based on the number of speakers or any accommodations that a speaker might need. So is there anyone that would like to address us this evening? Okay, then we will move on to our next agenda item. So our next agenda item, we have some amendments to Chapter 165, which is the Coralville zoning code. We will have a public hearing for this, and there are several changes that we are looking at here. Some of these, one particular amendment that we are needing to make this evening is needed to comply with recent legislation that would require cities in Iowa to allow accessory dwelling units. And as I said, there are some other tweaks and other changes that we are updating. This was looked at by the Community Development Director, Dave Johnson, as well as other staff. So why don't you share some of the information with us?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the bill that you referenced was Senate File 592. That was passed by the state of Iowa, again requiring local governments to allow accessory dwelling units with parameters. And then there's also Senate File 652, which removes the need for a property owner to prove a hardship to be eligible for variances from area dimensional or other numerical limitations within city code. In addition to that, I have also made some other changes, use this as an opportunity to take a look at things and update things again. Some of the more notable changes is I've added a definition for accessory dwelling units, group homes, residential care facilities, child care homes, child development homes, and home-based businesses have been added to the list of permitted uses in our residential district. This is in response to previous legislation that requires cities to allow group homes as permitted uses in residential districts. Those are allowed without any special permits or discretionary review by communities. Churches have been changed to places of worship as permitted uses in all residential and commercial districts. That was done in because places of worship better encompasses a wider range of religions and beliefs. We're also no longer allowing more than one structure on a single lot in the R4 district. That's being removed. For some time now, the city of Coralville has handed multiple principal buildings, structures, and uses on a lot through the planned unit development process. Permitted provisional and conditional uses in the C1, C2, and C3 districts have been consolidated and updated. Provisional uses in the C1 Convenience Commercial District have been moved to conditional uses to give greater degree of public review and consideration and to ensure those uses can fit within a neighborhood context. I1 and I2 Industrial District permitted provisional and conditional uses have also been consolidated and updated. Additional design standards for parking lots are being proposed in the parking and traffic standards. Notably, the code will require headlight screening, landscape islands, and internal connections to public sidewalks for parking areas. These are the same requirements that we have in the West Land Use area. They're good requirements, and they should be used throughout the city. In addition, parking lot setbacks are being moved from 7 feet to 9 feet to allow greater planting area. This change will also allow for more screening, and plants will have a much better chance of thriving with the added area. Bicycle parking requirements are being added to parking and traffic standards. These simply clarify existing expectations that we've had for commercial, civic, and other public use buildings. Permit requirements and expirations are being added to fence requirements found in the landscape and appearance standards in the code. This is in response to frequently asked questions from fence contractors and the public. A minimum 5-foot separation between the fence and sidewalk will be required to provide more area for passing pedestrians. The fence requirements are also being amended to require the finished side of a picket fence to face toward adjoining properties and/or public right-of-way. This was in response to a recent fence permit application where the homeowner did not do that for their neighbors. Tree requirements and landscape and appearance standards are being amended to allow new homeowners and developers more options in required tree plantings. And Chapter 165.38B, accessory dwelling units, is being added to the code. This language the proposed language directly reflects the state mandate in the Senate bill. And Chapter 165.54 variance is being amended to reflect Senate File 652. The Planning and Zoning Commission did review this at their June 4th meeting, and by a vote of 4-0, the commission recommended to approve the proposed amendments to Chapter 165 of the Coralville Code of Ordinances.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you for that overview. Okay, with that, I will open the public hearing on this. Is there anyone that would like to speak to us about this? Do we have any written comments? Okay, I will close the public hearing and we will consider the first ordinance.
Ordinance number 2025-1010, an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Coralville as previously amended, making changes to Chapter 165 of the Coralville Zoning Code. This ordinance introduced first consideration by Councilmember Knutson, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Wynn. Any questions or comments? I appreciate your work, taking the time not only to adapt for the recent legislation, but to also just kind of go through, and it's always good to just go through and see what needs to be updated and changed, and
Yeah,
yeah.
my
Lots
pleasure.
of exciting reading. Thank you.
Thank
It's
you.
important if you're doing a project. So.
What's that?
Yeah.
It's important if you're doing a project.
It
Yeah.
is,
So
yes.
Thank you so
and
much.
I hope with every one of these changes, we're
Yeah.
making improvements to our development standards and promoting quality development in Coralville.
With the ADUs in the can you talk a little bit about what that might look like? I mean, we're very limited in any type of regulation we can put on those, correct? Or how they're
Sure.
set up?
The state of Iowa was very specific in terms of what can and cannot be allowed for those. For accessory dwelling units, they are going to be allowed in all single-family attached and detached properties. They still need to follow the max land coverage requirements. So as the typical max land coverage requirement for a residential lot is buildings cannot exceed more than 30% of the total area of that lot. Accessory dwelling units are allowed to be either 50% of the area of the principal structure, in this case the home, but cannot in any circumstance exceed 1,000 square feet. The accessory dwelling units do need to meet the same setback area and dimensional requirements that we have for the principal structure in that zoning district. And then communities are not allowed to impose any special or specific architectural or design guidelines on an accessory dwelling unit that we wouldn't have for that home. That is, by and large, the bill, and our ordinance is going to, will be directly reflecting that. Keep in mind, too, there's a number of other ways that you can meet or have an accessory dwelling unit. We oftentimes immediately go to detached, right? Either above a garage or in a separate structure. You can also have accessory dwelling units by converting space in your existing home, maybe an unfinished basement. You can also have accessory dwelling units through an addition to your home. So there's actually a number of ways that you can accomplish this.
Go ahead, Mike.
This is kind of your area, so you can go first.
I'm a little unclear when it talks about maximum up to 50% of the existing square footage. Is that above grade square footage?
Correct. So just building footprints, building envelopes is
Okay.
what's counted in
That was
that,
my
in that
understanding, but I
30%
just wanted-
requirement.
Okay.
Correct.
Now, you mentioned the setbacks are the same, but it was my understanding that detached buildings could be a lot closer to the back of the lot than.
You're correct. Detached accessory buildings, as someone who's just doing a shed or a garage, those can
But
be
a
within
dwelling
6
is
feet.
not- So a dwelling, if you're gonna live there, it has to, you still have to have,
You would still have to meet the same setbacks as the dwelling that is the principal dwelling. So you'd have those same
so that's pretty
standards.
limiting for some.
It depends on your lot size, and quite honestly,
course.
a lot of these regulations are based on your lot size. If you have a smaller lot, no matter what the configuration, it's going to be a challenge in order to establish an accessory dwelling unit. And that is in part by design. You need to have a large enough lot in order to support that extra dwelling unit, those extra people, and their vehicles and other things that oftentimes come with an additional dwelling unit.
Okay. So if you have a detached garage,
Mm-hmm.
it can be very close to the lot line.
A detached garage can be within 6 feet of a rear lot line or a side yard, or a side lot line. We do
Right.
not allow any accessory structures to be in a front yard, which would
Right,
be the
right,
yard
right.
abutting a house and the street.
Right, right.
And we would also require it be a minimum setback 10 feet from the front building plane of that garage. So the front yard setback on another type of accessory dwelling unit, like just a garage, is less restrictive for side and rear, but in a way, it's actually more restrictive on a front yard.
Okay.
Or a side yard. I'm sorry, a side yard facing a street.
Okay.
Dave, can you clarify what's the difference is, because before the ADU get in effect, folks can expand their house, right? They can finish the basement, they can like add on and things like that, but it was not defined at ADU. So now, how is it different if someone build a detached or expand their house? How is the language is different as far as define a unit as ADU?
You're absolutely correct. People have always been able to add on to their home, and, you know, if they had a relative or somebody else who wanted to live there, you could always do that. You could also add on to your home and make that a rental, provided that that addition or that area that you're converting is attached to, it has its own utilities, and it has its own entrance and meets the minimum, residential housing code. What really separates this bill from what we've been allowing in the past is the accessory, the actual detached second dwelling unit on a property. That's the big difference between what we are doing now, moving forward, versus what we've done in the past.
Thank you for that clarification.
Do we have any other questions? Okay. Could I have the roll call, please?
Knutson?
Aye.
Vogelzang?
Aye.
Kuhn?
Aye.
Goodrich?
Aye.
Ordinance passes its first consideration, all ayes. All right, next, I would entertain a motion to collapse the second and third reading of this ordinance.
Motion to collapse the second and third reading of this ordinance.
Moved by Nguyen, could I get a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Goodrich. Could I have the roll call, please?
Vogelzang?
Aye, yeah. Sorry.
Kuhn?
Aye.
Goodrich?
Aye.
Knutson?
Aye.
The motion to collapse the second and third reading passes. Okay, with all ayes. So next, we will have the second reading of the ordinance.
Ordinance number 2025-1010, an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Coralville as previously amended, making changes to Chapter 165, the Coralville zoning code. This ordinance introduced for second consideration by Councilmember Vogelzang, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Knutson. Any questions?
I would just note, Mayor, we don't generally like to make a habit of doing 3 readings in one night, but because this had to go through Planning and Zoning Commission and we didn't find out about it until the end of the legislative session, we do have to get 3 readings in before July 1st. So
Right.
otherwise, we do like to allow more time for things to be reviewed by people.
That, yes, that's, thank you for mentioning that, because there are a couple of ordinances, and we don't typically collapse the readings. It's rare that we do that, but as you say, I think all of these laws do go into effect July 1st.
Aren't we technically collapsing first, second, and third?
For this one, yes. The other two, we had one reading last meeting.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, because you have to have a
And then we'll
seven.
vote on them again tonight.
You have to have a 7-day notice for a P and Z, and you can't, since the Planning and Zoning Commission 6 days before our meeting, you can't get a publication. That's why all zoning and ordinance hearings come to the second meeting of the month.
Okay.
That's good clarification. Okay, could I have the roll call, please?
Quinn.
Aye.
Goodrich. Aye. Knutson.
Aye.
Vogelzang.
Aye.
Ordinance passes its second consideration, all ayes. And finally, could I have the third reading of the ordinance?
Ordinance number 2025-1010, an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Coralville as previously amended, making changes to Chapter 165 of the Coralville zoning code. This ordinance introduced for third and final consideration by Councilmember Quinn, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Knutson. Any final thoughts? Okay, roll call, please.
Goodrich. Aye. Knutson.
Aye.
Vogelzang.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
Ordinance passes its third consideration, all ayes. Okay, next item, we have the Fifth Street Villas. This is the third reading of an ordinance. That would be a change in land use that would allow this parcel to be redeveloped into 20 townhome units. Could I have the ordinance read, please?
Ordinance number 2025-1007, an ordinance amending the Coralville Community Plan to reflect certain property generally known as Fifth Street Villas, Johnson County, Iowa, to be designated medium-density residential use in place of public, semi-public use, and low-density residential use. This ordinance introduced for third and final consideration by Councilmember Quinn, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Goodrich. Any questions or discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Knutson.
Aye.
Vogelzang.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
Peter. Goodrich. Aye.
Ordinance passes its third consideration, all ayes. And our next agenda item are some changes to our fireworks ordinance. This is another situation where we are needing to make changes to comply with recent legislation that would allow the use of fireworks within the city limits on July 3rd and 4th between 9 a.m. and 11 p.m. and December 31st between 9 a.m. and 12:30 a.m. on January 1st. And this, again, as we previously discussed, was one of the agenda items where we did vote at the last meeting to collapse the second and third readings. And we had a lengthy discussion about this at our previous meeting as well. All right, so let's start with the reading of the second reading of the ordinance.
Ordinance number 2025-1008, an ordinance amending Chapter 41 of the Code of Ordinances regarding fireworks regulation. This ordinance introduced for second consideration by Councilmember Goodrich, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Wynn. Any questions or discussion? Like I said, we did discuss this at the previous meeting. I would just remind folks that, you know, I think it's fair to say that this is not something we would be doing if we, you know, didn't need to. And fireworks, we know, are very challenging. I've seen multiple changes to the fireworks ordinance in my time on the council, and just would ask that folks, if you do choose to use fireworks in the community, make sure that you're reviewing the rules that are listed on the city's website. And if you notice that there's anyone that maybe is violating those rules or using fireworks outside of the time frame that we need to follow, you can call the non-emergency number for the police department. That is on the city's website. But again, I want to emphasize, call the non-emergency number for those calls. Okay, any other comments or questions?
just be safe, please, and be mindful of pet, especially dog, and people who have PSTD. And talk to your neighbor. If you decide to have firework within the time limit, please, just out of courtesy, talk to your neighbor. Let them know so that they can make plan for, family member or themselves if they suffer from PTSD, and then also make plan for their pet.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for saying that. Very good. Anybody else? Okay, roll call.
Vogelzang,
Aye.
Quinn,
Aye.
Goodrich.
Aye.
Knutson.
Aye.
Ordinance passes its second consideration, all ayes. And finally, the third reading.
Ordinance number 2025-1008, an ordinance amending Chapter 41 of the Code of Ordinances regarding fireworks regulation. This ordinance introduced for third and final consideration by Councilmember Knutson, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Goodrich. Any final thoughts? Okay, roll call.
Quinn,
Aye.
Goodrich.
Aye.
Knutson.
Aye.
Vogelzang.
Aye.
Ordinance passes its third and final consideration, all ayes. And next item, we have some changes to our unbiased policing ordinance. This is another change that we are making to comply with legislation that forbids cities from having community policing advisory boards. And as I mentioned previously, we had a discussion about this at our last meeting, and we did vote to collapse the ordinances in order to comply with the legislation going into effect. All right, so could I have the second reading of the ordinance, please?
Ordinance number 2025-1009, an ordinance removing Chapter 31 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Coralville regarding unbiased policing. This ordinance is introduced for second consideration by Councilmember Vogelzang, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Knutson. And I want to do another quick recap of the discussion that we had. We talked about how there are multiple avenues for community members to file a complaint. Those mechanisms still exist. That does not change. So if there is a complaint, there is a process that the community can go through. We also have a lot of things in our policies that, for training and other things that our officers are required to do. And we also have our human rights ordinance that can also be utilized in this, if there ever is a concern. And we talked about setting up a community safety committee where we can continue the dialogue with law enforcement and the community to talk about community safety initiatives, where we can look at some of the root causes of things that are happening in the community and collaborate and talk about solutions for those things. So there are several mechanisms in place still that we can utilize if anyone has a concern about the police department. Any other comments?
Yeah, I would just like to say that we do this in comply of state law, but that doesn't mean that we'll stop doing what is right. And if you have a bad experience with law enforcement elsewhere, and you choose to live here in Coralville and need to report or file a complaint or anything like that, and sometimes it's not just complaint. If you have a positive encounter with our law enforcement, please, we would like to hear that as well. And if you don't feel comfortable going to the police department to file those things, please reach out to any of us, any of the council member, the mayor. We would be more than happy to accompany you to the department.
Yeah, and I would also mention the data is still going to be looked at as well. So a lot of those things are still going to be in place. And I would just note, you talked about the feedback. Obviously, we always want things to go very well. And I would just note that in my experience, I've been here 7 years, I have received far more positive notes about our department than negative. You know, there's always situations, it's tough. There's always conflict. There's always, issues that crop up. But by and large, vast majority of the feedback that I've received about our department has been positive. So I appreciate that you brought that up as well, that we like hearing the good things. Any other comments about this? Okay. Could I have the roll call, please?
Goodrich,
Aye.
Knutson.
Aye.
Vogelzang.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
Ordinance passes its second consideration, all ayes. And finally, could I have the third reading of the ordinance?
Ordinance number 2025-1009, an ordinance removing Chapter 31 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Coralville regarding unbiased policing. This ordinance introduced for third and final consideration by Councilmember Goodrich, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Vogelzang. Any final thoughts or questions?
No, but I would just like to say that it is relationship building, within the community, just like with the library, just like with the rec center. Really, it should not be any different, just because, law enforcement has been under scrutiny, and also there's bad apple everywhere, and one bad apple can make the whole gaylord bad sometime. So please just take the time, learn more about what our law enforcement officer do here, and interact with them just like you interact with any other staff or officer in any other department.
Yeah, and I would just note too that Community Safety Committee proposal that's one of the other things that we're hoping to do, is to have those, to foster those positive relationships and keep the communication going between law enforcement and the community. So
Yeah, and sign up for those. That's where you make changes. That's where you can make a recommendation and thing, and that's where you have a direct impact, on how things should work in our community.
Yeah, all right.
I've got to say, the only thing I've ever heard from anybody that I've ever talked has been very positive about Coralville Police Department. I've not heard not a single negative comment, so. And Officer Detweiler's been doing a great job,
Yeah,
too.
Sure
So,
has been.
It's been great.
Yeah, right, and that's what we are really trying to build and continue to build on those good things, for sure.
So,
Excellent.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. All right, could I have the roll call, please?
Knutson.
Aye.
Vogelzang.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
Goodrich.
Aye.
Ordinance passes its third consideration, all ayes. Next item, we have our Johnson County Hazard Mitigation Plan. This is a FEMA and state-approved 5-year multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan for Johnson County to improve disaster resistance. Could I have the ordinance read, please? Resolution.
Resolution adopting the 2025 Johnson County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan. This resolution introduced for adoption by Councilmember Wynn, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Knutson. Any questions or discussion?
It took me about 2 pots of coffee to get down through this.
I was like,
Long.
It's a lot, yeah.
Every detail.
Yeah, it really is about looking at what our risks are for various hazards, and, what's the probability and what would be the impact and that type of thing. And what's most important from our standpoint is to apply for grant funds, for instance, the utility resilience, or if you wanted to do buyouts. Things like that have to be listed in this plan for you to be able to apply for FEMA dollars for them. They can be listed kind of generally, but you have to have it in there to be eligible. So we've done a good job of being forward-thinking in the past so that we've been able to apply for what we wanted to.
Awesome.
Good.
All right. Anything else?
Yeah, what's space weather?
Space weather?
Yeah, that's in this plan. Got to prepare
I don't
for
know
space
what
weather.
Space weather. I mean, I would assume storms and,
Meteorites.
yeah.
Stuff falling out of the
That's
Stuff
sky.
falling out
Storms
of
are in
the
there.
sky.
They're at the top of the list. Space weather's down at the
It
bottom,
might be
whatever.
playing.
Yeah, I
Maybe
think
it's
that's a lower
sunspots.
risk one for
Yeah.
us.
You got it, but you got to include
You
it.
got to include it all, yeah. I mean, I think earthquakes are in there, and just hurricanes, lots of things that we don't typically think we're
I don't see
susceptible
nuclear
to.
attack in here.
I
I don't think FEMA's gonna help with that.
I did see I noticed the earthquake thing.
That's another report.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a different
You have to think of
report.
everything.
Yep. All right, any other questions or comments? Okay, roll call, please.
Vogelzang,
Aye.
Quinn,
Aye.
Goodrich. Aye. Knutson.
Aye.
Resolution is approved, all ayes. Next item, we have our Law Enforcement Mental Health Liaison. This is a reimbursement agreement between the Coralville Police Department, North Liberty Police Department, and Johnson County Sheriff's Department. And this is for a law enforcement liaison for mental health, crisis support, and follow-up. Could I have the resolution read, please?
Resolution approving a reimbursement agreement for shared law enforcement liaison for mental health crisis support. This resolution introduced for adoption by Councilmember Knutson, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Wynn. Okay, this is another example of this. Would you like to come up and talk, Chief?
I don't have a whole lot. This is just a continuation of what we've been going on all along with the Sheriff's Office and North Liberty this past year. The only big change here is that we're losing funding from the regions due to some cuts at the state level. So previously we paid 1/3 of 50%, and now we will pay 1/3 of 100%. So an increase for us, but absolutely a need and a resource that we've used exponentially since she started with us.
Yeah.
So she's been great,
Yeah, this is basically a social worker
pretty much.
that works within our police department and handles things that are not criminal activities that people might call the police about, and I would love to have 2 or 3 more.
I'd take half a dozen, but yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it's so important, and again, that kind of ties into everything that we were just talking about with that previous agenda
She
item.
maintains a caseload of individuals or clients that she deals with on a regular basis, and she has follow-up and connections, so you can get those folks connected with the services that they need, that our frontline officers don't know the resources or wouldn't have the time to, continue on the care of that individual. So she's been phenomenal.
Excellent, I love hearing it.
Great.
I love it, thank you.
Thank you.
Out of curiosity, Iowa City's obviously not in this. They have their own, I assume. Do they
That's
have
correct.
just one?
They have 2.
They have 2. Okay. And Tiffin doesn't have any.
Tiffin
covered by
Tiffin
the
would use
county.
the sheriff's office, and so they'd share
Yeah.
Kiana with them, so.
For now, at least. It'd be nice to split this 4 ways, wouldn't it?
She's busy enough 3 ways.
Well, I mean, if Tiffin
That's a
had a
good
police
point.
force, they would
Yeah.
be asked to participate, I would think.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you very much. Do we have any other questions or comments? Okay, roll call, please.
Quinn,
Aye.
Goodrich, Knutson.
Aye.
Vogelzang.
Aye.
Resolution is approved, all ayes. Next item, we have our 5th Street improvements, 12th Avenue to 20th Avenue. So this is a big one. We've got 3 parts to this agenda item. So we'll start with the first, obviously. This supplemental agreement is for additional design services, bid assistance, and construction services that are needed for this project. Can I have the first resolution read, please?
Resolution approving a supplemental agreement number 2 with Shive Hattery, Inc. for the 5th Street improvements, 12th Avenue to 20th Avenue. This resolution introduced for adoption by Councilmember Vogelzang, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Wynn. Any questions or comments? Okay, roll call, please.
Goodrich.
Aye.
Knutson.
Aye.
Vogelzang.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
Resolution is approved, all ayes. And on to the next resolution. This one is a supplemental agreement for additional construction phase services when the original project was split into 5 phases and constructed over 3 years. Could I have the resolution read, please?
Resolution approving supplemental agreement number 3 with Shive Hattery, Inc. for the 5th Street improvements, 12th to 20th Avenue. This resolution introduced for adoption by Councilmember Wynn, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Goodrich. Do we have any questions or comments? Okay, roll call, please.
Knutson?
Aye.
Vogelzang?
Aye.
Quinn?
Aye.
Goodrich? Aye.
Resolution is approved, all ayes. And our last one, this supplemental agreement is for additional design and construction phase services when the reconstruction of Fire Station 1 pavement, or for the reconstruction of Fire Station 1 pavement between the Fifth Street sidewalk and the bay doors, and this was added to the project. Could I have the resolution read, please?
Resolution approving supplemental number 4 to the engineering services agreement with Shive Hattery, Inc. for the Fifth Street improvements, 12th to 20th Avenue. This resolution introduced for adoption by Councilmember Goodrich, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Vogelzang. Any questions or comments?
I have a question about the timing. It seems like this is all work that was done quite a while back.
I said Scott might be able to.
And I guess the question is, why are we finally voting on it, maybe? Or
Yes.
maybe it's, hasn't been done yet. It seems like these were projects that were done.
2 and 3 have been done,
completed. Yeah.
and 4 is the addition of the fire station work. Basically, supplementals 2 and 3 go back to this project. When we originally signed the engineering services agreement with Shive Hattery, the project at that time hadn't been designed, and it had not been determined that it would have to be split into 5 phases, technically 6, the way we ended up doing it. And so originally that construction period was essentially one full construction season. But ultimately, once we got into design, there were lots of restrictions as far as access goes, and so we had to split the project up, and that's why it's carrying through to 3 construction seasons. So, and to go back a little bit further as well, if you remember, we bid the project once
Yeah.
in the spring of '23. The bids were very high. We then took out the water main project, the water main portion that was through phases 1 and 2, and we bid that out as separate work. So one of these supplementals covers that additional design effort of putting together a plan set, doing the construction staking for that separate water main project. And then ultimately, there were additional plan revisions needed to go back and rebid the project through the DOT. So
Yeah.
it's playing catch up.
That's what I was remembering. A lot of this happened
Yeah.
quite a while back.
Yep.
Any other questions?
And this is essentially what they billed us for that extra work.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, these are not to exceeds.
Yeah, which means they billed us. That's how much they billed us, right?
Not yet.
Oh, they haven't?
No.
Okay.
No. Some of this was honestly hard to figure out. Another element of one of the supplementals is all the work that was involved with the private utility relocations, which that was an extensive project in itself that required a lot of coordination with Shive Hattery and all the various utility companies, and that went on a lot longer than expected as utility conflicts were determined, unknown utilities were encountered, and there was a lot of coordination work on their part to get that done.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, roll call.
Vogelzang?
Aye.
Quinn?
Aye.
Goodrich? Aye. Knutson?
Aye.
Our resolution is approved, all ayes. Next item, we have interior drainage modeling, pump stations 5, 8, and 10. This amendment is for additional services required to update the interior drainage model following changes to the Gather, Iowa site plan. Could I have the resolution read, please?
Resolution approving professional services agreement amendment number 1 with HR Green, Inc. for interior drainage modeling for pump stations 5, 8, and 10. This resolution introduced for adoption by Councilmember Knutson, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Wynn. Any questions or comments on this? Do you have anything to add, or?
No.
Cool. All right.
How often do these pump stations get tested?
They are.
Obviously, they've been there probably 10 years now.
They are inspected.
We haven't needed them.
They're inspected weekly. I'm not positive on the actual testing, but I can get that answer for you. It is prescribed standard operating procedure. that our wastewater department actually handles.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, roll call, please.
Quinn,
Aye.
Goodrich.
Aye.
Knutson.
Aye.
Vogelsang.
Aye.
Resolution is approved, all ayes. Next item, transfer of funds. And this is for our Director of Finance to transfer unassigned funds to cover disbursements and to comply with regulatory statutes. All right, and this was something that we approved in a previous meeting back in April. Could I have the resolution read, please?
Resolution authorizing the transfer of funds. This resolution introduced for adoption by Councilmember Vogelsang, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Goodrich.
I just want to note, it's probably 2025, is that correct? April 9th, 2025?
I believe that note is from last year, so we talked about the fiscal year 25 transfers at the last
Yeah.
meeting session.
Okay,
Yes.
so
Yep.
we're on track for this year. Yeah, thanks.
All right, any other questions? Okay, roll call.
Goodrich.
Aye.
Knutson.
Aye.
Vogelsang.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
Resolution is approved, all ayes. And finally, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Madam Mayor, I would like to ask council to consider motion to approve the consent calendar as presented, A to double A.
Moved by Nguyen, could I get a second?
Second.
Seconded by Knutson. Roll call, please.
Knutson.
Aye.
Vogelsang.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
Goodrich.
Aye.
The consent calendar is approved, all ayes. Okay, Deputy City Administrator's report.
Yeah, Scott has some good news for us on projects that he's
Okay.
going to share.
Yeah. So you probably saw my press release that went out this afternoon. When that went out, we weren't quite sure if the road was going to open today or not. So the press release indicated the road would open tomorrow. Well, it's open. Things went well this afternoon out on site, and we also, the contractor kind of came to us and said, you know, look at the forecast for tomorrow has some rain in there, and they just really wanted to try and get things wrapped up today. And it was so nearly complete anyway, it would have been kind of maybe silly to leave just a few barricades up to keep it closed off. So we went ahead and opened it up and considered a soft opening, and then tomorrow is the official opening. And then still on Thursday is when Coralville transit stops and routes will return to normal. So Thursday morning, transit will be back to normal for a short period of time. So anyway, we are reopening Fifth Street on schedule to be open through the Fourth Fest holidays and parade. However, on Monday, July 7th is when we will close the next phase, which is Phase 4, which is from just west of 7th Street to just east of the fire station. That is Phase 4. So I will be issuing another press release this week regarding the changes to the transit stops and routes related to Phase 4 construction. And then we're also going to send out a press release to clarify for residents how they can access the police department and fire station during Phase 4, because that impacts Fifth Street across the fronts of those two buildings. So that's Fifth Street. Do you have any questions about Fifth Street? If not, I'll move on to the next.
Yeah, can I ask a quick question, because someone asked me, and I just want to make sure that I
Yes.
have the right answer. Folk was just wondering why we cut it into section.
Right. It's all about property access and the distances involved. Many of the properties, there was no other place for them to access their property other than Fifth Street itself. Sometimes because their properties, say, didn't extend all the way south to Highway 6, so they didn't have double frontages to work with. And in many cases, we didn't even have connecting parking lots that we could have tried to work out arrangements to get easements from multiple properties to create those access points. We did a lot of that where we could, and we're implementing some of that with the upcoming Phase 4. but really it came down to the realities of the Fifth Street corridor was actually really narrow. And the access to the properties, whether that's residential or commercial, we took the path of trying to do our best to keep access to people and make the distances they would have to walk if they did have to park off-site to a minimum.
Thank you so much for that clarification.
Seems like we did something similar on First Avenue a few years back.
So
We maintain access. Maybe
yeah,
it wasn't as
all of our-
complicated or as dense there.
All of our First Avenue and Highway 6 projects, we did commit to maintaining access to all businesses. So,
Yeah.
so we always had the orange business name signs out at every single driveway. But the big difference is those two streets, First Avenue and Highway 6, were 4-lane to
4
begin
lanes,
with.
yeah, yeah.
Here, we're left with 2-lane, and we did consider an option, could we have really long one-way sections, maybe controlled by automated traffic signals, and just, that wouldn't have necessarily helped the traveling public, and it would have made construction exceptionally difficult for the contractors involved too, by not giving them the full width of the project. So it would have certainly cost more, and I'm not sure it would have saved time by splitting things up in half like that.
Yeah.
So, okay. Anything else on Fifth Street? I'll just do a couple of quick updates on 2 other projects. Well 16 improvements, and I'll lump in the 12th Avenue street patching into that as well. On the way down here, I stopped by the 12th Avenue and South Ridge Drive intersection. So the north leg of that intersection is where we had to trench across to install the new 12-inch raw water main. That crossing has been paved back. They completed that concrete pour today. The other crossing of 12th Avenue that's further south of South Ridge Drive, that will be paved tomorrow. So those are the 2 main impediments to getting traffic back onto 12th Avenue. The city also has some associated patching that we've been taking advantage of the closure and the detour to get that done. So that work, I believe, possibly wrapped up today, if not, hopefully tomorrow. And so we're getting close, and we still are on track to get traffic back on 12th Avenue on or before July 3rd. Also, Jordan mentioned earlier that the subcontractor that's doing the actual well 16 drilling portion of the project, they did get started yesterday, and so they are working around the clock for the next few weeks, and we'll see how they go with reaching the maximum depth of this particular water well.
They haven't started to drill yet.
No, they did.
They did.
Yesterday.
I mean, yesterday. But the project's been going on. I thought that was the main part of the project.
They did. They drilled, what do they call the first
They
section?
drilled the first casing down bedrock 102
Yeah.
feet.
Okay.
Then have to grout it, so then they're off-site for 2 weeks essentially, waiting for that to cure.
Okay.
Now they're starting the second casing drill, which gets through the deflonium, and then they'll have to grout that casing, and then at that point, we gotta get down through the slurry. So we're in the second drilling phase of this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you hear it? Is the sound, I mean,
haven't-
I'm surprised because
I haven't heard any
was
complaints.
concerned that we would
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
hearing.
The neighbors adjacent to it were notified. I think hopefully
Okay.
that helped, but, yeah, I have not heard any complaints.
Maybe
It sounds
it's-
like an idling semi if you're on the site. My guess is your outside AC unit's probably louder than that at your house. I mean,
Great. I'm
this
glad
is
to hear
trees
that.
and Things like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know how noticeable it is. I have not heard anything from the public.
And regardless, we just need to do it and hope people can have tolerance.
Yeah.
It's not as bad as the fireworks you're gonna hear.
Yeah. Any questions on well 16? Other questions? No. The last one I'll just mention is the Oakdale Boulevard Force Main project. Majority of the work on that project right now has been focused on Brown Deer Road, just splicing together the sections of force main, putting in an air release manhole. And they're pushing towards getting completed here over the next couple of weeks, so. That's all I have.
Thank you, Scott. I would just say, next week is a big day for us, always with Fourth Fest on Friday. things kick off this weekend with the 5K in the park, and you can register same day. And then the 3rd and the 4th, we start in with the carnival and other activities. So actually, the carnival starts on the 2nd, and then starting on the 3rd, we've got concerts, and they're free, and the petting zoo, and bingo, and breakfast, and all kinds of good stuff. So check the website for all the details.
All right. Excellent. Thank you for that. Mayor's report. I really don't have a lot. I was going to mention Fourth Fest as well, and closures of city building. Everything's closed just on the 4th, or?
Yeah, for the most part, just on the 4th, and trash collection is as usual because we don't do collections on Friday, so we're good there. And City Hall will be open for restroom use on the 4th as well. And the rec center has a little more limited hours, but they'll be open for restrooms as well.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. The only other thing I was going to mention, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who helped out with our Pride events last week, the city staff. Really great partnership that we have. I think this is the second year we have partnered with Iowa City Pride to get events in Coralville, and they were a lot of fun. The putt-putt, the picnic was well attended. I didn't make it to the ice skating this year, but really fun to have that event as well. And of course, the parade was in Iowa City, but always a fun parade to attend. So really grateful for that partnership, and appreciate all of the work and help that we had with those events. And that's all I have. City Attorney's report.
Nothing, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Committee and council members report. Let's start down at this end with Lori.
Oh, thank you. Ellen talked about the Fourth Fest, and just wanted to mention a couple other things. There'll be special things at the swimming pool and also a kids' tractor pull. So there's a lot going on the 4th, the parade, and then with vendors and the bingo, the petting zoo, the aquatic center will be $4 a person, and the first 100 pool visitors get a free beach ball, kids tractor pull, and then City Circle and Footlighters perform, and also then the free concert by the Iowa City Community Band and the fireworks. So we hope everybody can come out, bring your lawn chairs and blankets, and make it a fun 4th of July. I have had the opportunity to bike on a lot of the trails this last week, and just want to encourage people to be out there enjoying the trails, walking, biking, just enjoy the weather. Even though it's rainy and hot sometimes, we can still get outside. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Hi.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have the pleasure to participate in an event for Juneteenth last Wednesday, actually. It was held at the CCPA, and it was a film that talk about the life and the work of the Negro artist, which is a local artist here in our community. And Caleb Rainey has been doing a lot of educating and also building relationship, and just bring to light what it's feel like to be a Black person living, in the community, the experience, and then also growing up in a interracial family, and how that shaped him as an artist now, and how he used his words to be able to empower young kids, and teach them to speak up and speak out, but be kind and be courteous. It was very moving, And I just wish that more people know about that and more people showed up. I had the pleasure of watching Caleb perform 4 or 5 times, and each time I thought I knew, but each time he surprised me in the most delightful way. So if you have the opportunity to see Caleb Rainey, the Negro artist, perform, I would encourage everyone to take that opportunity. And for future Juneteenth, I would love to see more collaboration, with the city to bring in artists and folks who can elevate, that holiday in our community. The library have an app, so they has been talking about it for a while, and they have been testing it for a while, and they are very happy that everything is working according to how it's supposed to work. So we love our libraries, right? And we always wanted to find a way to access it better, all the services and anything that is library related. So if you have a smartphone, which most folks have now, I would encourage you to go and download the app, Coralville Public Library. It is pretty slick. It will tell you all of the event that is happening within the week, the month, any update, books, all sort of thing. I loved it. You can also access like summer reading program and winter reading program, all of that. So give it a try, and then if you like it, make sure to stop by your library and tell your librarian thank you. Tomorrow is our big Johnson County food distribution for the Healthy Kids Iowa, which is in place of the summer EBT. So any family that have kids from 4 to 18 that is qualified for SNAP or summer EBT, free and reduced lunch, is qualified for the food box tomorrow. And this is a food box that up to $40 for each child in the family. You can drive through, you can walk to the site. It is going to be at the back parking lot of Northwest Middle School. We are going to utilize that parking lot and also the parking lot of Kirkwood in order to have space and to make things safe. The distribution is from 2 to 6, and anybody can come. We do ask for you to verify using a TFAP form, but it should be quick and simple. We do have some translator on site as well for Spanish, Arabic, and hopefully French. So please come by. And then you can also pick up for friends or family who might not be able to come during the distribution time. We just ask that you have to fill out a TFAP form for that family. Thank you to the City of Coralville Park and Rec, the police department, the fire department. Without your assistance, I don't think we can pull this off. And we have done all that we can with all that we have. And so we are hoping for a smooth and efficient distribution tomorrow. Now we just need your help to spread the words. So please, just let everybody know in the community. This would be just for the month of June. And we are hoping to do another one in July and August, but we're not sure where yet. So there's that.
Hi, do you
Yes.
have a backup plan for rain?
Rain? Well, we talk about that. This morning, we have one last final meeting just to make sure that we have everything in place. In case of rain, the rec center will bring out, I think, 14 tents that they have.
Okay.
Community will also bring, and I forgot to mention community and the county and Open Heartland, those are our partner agency as well, and obviously HACAP. They will bring tents, and that's how we are going to keep the food dry and the people dry. Hopefully, we'll just have a cloudy day instead of rain. And last Friday, the food pantry partnered with the rec center, not the rec center, the police department and the fire department to have a neighborhood public safety day. and it was widely successful. We didn't have good weather. It's rained like crazy, but we pivot and make the event happen, and family was very happy, and we hear great feedback. And we would like to do more of these, not just in the limit of food pantry, but hopefully community-wide. So if you have ideas, please let us know. But thank you to the police department and the fire department. Kids have a lot of fun checking out the squad car and the fire engine, and getting to eat hamburger and hot dog grilled by our law enforcement and firefighter. So thank you. And then we have the mobile clinic this Saturday, the 28th of June, from 10 to 1:30. Anybody can come. It's going to be in the community space that attached to the pantry. So if you need health care, please come. And I think that's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Yes, very, very busy. The thing tomorrow is a very, very large undertaking. And one thing I just wanted to note about Caleb Rainey, a wonderful performance, very moving. It was incredible. But he is also raising funds to take a group of his students through the program that he runs called Iowa City Speaks. He is fundraising to try to get those kids to an event where they can share their work. He does have a GoFundMe for that. If you check out his Instagram page, his handle is the Negro Artist. There's an underscore in there somewhere. But if you want to help with that effort, that was one thing that he talked about, was that it's really important to find ways to share his work and to get other kids the opportunity to share their work as well. So awesome. Thank you for bringing that.
Thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah, you bet. All right, Rich.
I have nothing.
Okay, what about you, Mike?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll start by seconding what Lori commented on, and getting into the woods in the heat. I was biking and did a little bit of single track off of Clear Creek, and I swear it gets 20 degrees cooler when you're in there compared to what it's like on the paved trails in the sun. And I'll thank Hi for setting up a meeting we had with Nancy Bird to talk law, so I just wanted to comment on that, which was a very good discussion we had a couple weeks ago, I guess. She informed us, and you can see in the North Liberty agenda that they're talking about it tonight at their meeting. And there's mock language that they've come up with, which is which she was very supportive of, and I would be too. It talks about this isn't officially up for vote yet, but it's kind of a sample. It talks about 50% for property tax relief. Yes, we got the same one, but so we'll probably discuss this later, maybe. But I know Kelly's not here tonight. But very open-ended is how they're in terms of what they would use it for, including community center upgrades. I think that's their rec center too, is their community center, right? Which they were talking about that being old. You think about how much younger it is than our community center or rec center. Fire station, fire trucks, parks, trails, and then they do mention the housing supply, affordable housing, and really talk about a lot of things we already do. Workforce, housing gap support. I know we do that. Neighborhood investment projects. Home improvement renovation grants, and other housing projects designated by city council. It's very open-ended in that regard. And the only thing that was a little bit concerning in looking at the materials they provided in their agenda was that they voted on this twice before, and it wasn't close either time. So we'll have some work to do if we want to get it to pass. That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All right, appreciate all of those comments. And with that, I would consider a motion to adjourn to an executive session. This is to evaluate the professional competency of an individual whose appointment, hiring, performance, or discharge is being considered when necessary to prevent needless and irreparable injury to that individual's I don't know, I lost the last page. Anyway, reputation, yes, so
moved.
okay, moved by Knutson. Second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Nguyen. All right.
We got a
Oh, voice vote, roll call.
Vogel, Zhang.
Aye.
Kuhn,
Aye.
Goodrich. Aye. Knutson.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. We'll be back.